We don't need Europe's permission to terminate this atrocious agreement. And finally, the nuclear agreement has actually increased the regional and international threat from Iran. Now, the president said that our relations with Iran would improve because of this agreement, that Iran might become a partner for peace in the Middle East. That hasn't happened. Soon after Congress voted on the Iran deal, Iran conducted ballistic missile tests, fired rockets near a U.S. aircraft carrier, threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, increased its support to the Assad regime, was accused of arming the Taliban in Afghanistan, and was caught operating a bomb factory in Bahrain. Now, in January, Iran reached something called Implementation Day. This is a day when the IAEA certified that Iran had met the requirements to have $150 billion in sanctions lifted from it, and most UN Security Council resolutions suspended. After that happened, Iran tested more missiles, attempted to send boatloads of weapons to the Houthi rebels in Yemen, sent troops to Syria, and pledged $70 million to the Palestinian terrorist group Islamic Jihad to conduct jihad against Israel. And let's make no mistake, that $70 million came from sanctions relief. We also know that there is a 90% increase in the Iranian defense budget in 2016, funded by sanctions relief because of the JCPOA. But it gets worse. The Iranians think this agreement was not generous enough and has been pressuring the administration, and some would say trying to blackmail the administration by threatening to walk away from the deal to get more concessions. As a result, the administration is pressing companies worldwide to invest in Iran. This is so bad that the White House has been called Iran's global lobbying shop in a recent article in the Washington Free Beacon. Over the last few months, Iranian leaders have been pressuring the administration to give it access to the U.S. financial system and dollarized transactions. Now, Congress objected to this. It looked like the administration backed away, but my understanding is that the administration is trying to find a backdoor way to give Iran access to the U.S. financial system. This was a concession that the administration said it would never make because these restrictions are related to terrorism, and we were told that terrorism-related U.S. sanctions would not be lifted under the agreement. The concern here is because of Iran's activities funding terrorism and activities and money laundering. This is the kind of thing we would not agree to do. But it looks as if this is something the administration is moving to do. You may have seen that Boeing has struck a $25 billion deal to sell civilian airliners to Iran. Airbus has made a similar deal. My friend Mark Dubowitz of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, who I think is the city's leading expert in Iran sanctions, has a great op-ed in yesterday's Wall Street Journal explaining how Congress has to stop this transfer because these planes will probably be used to transport weapons and troops to Syria and probably to support Hezbollah. And Mark's on the Hill right now, and he's probably making that case to the Foreign Relations Committee in some testimony. Oh, okay. So what are we going to do? I think the deal has to be torn up. I will concede that if, as I said, if Mr. Trump says he is not going to tear up the deal, he'll probably get a good deal or a better one. And if he insists on trying to renegotiate the deal, I have some principles which I list in my book he should pursue. Iran has to cease all uranium enrichment and uranium enrichment research. Iran cannot have a heavy water reactor or a plant to produce heavy water. There must be robust verification, including anytime, anywhere inspections by IAEA inspectors of declared and suspect nuclear facilities. And you might remember we were promised this by Ben Rhodes, that there would be anytime, anywhere inspections during the agreement. That was later written off by Wendy Sherman as a rhetorical flourish. A state with such a track record of cheating on its international obligations has to be suspect to anytime, anywhere inspections. It can't be given time to hide evidence of nuclear weapons-related work. Iran must truthfully and fully answer all questions about its prior nuclear weapons-related activities. Iran must curtail and agree to limitations, including joining treaties to limit missile proliferation. Iran must lift sanctions in stages in response to its compliance with a nuclear agreement. My hope is there will be more sanctions placed on Iran, and there is bipartisan support for that right now. If we do have a Hillary Clinton presidency, I hold out a glimmer of hope that there will be a successful bipartisan effort to convince her to support sanctions, at least against Iranian missile tests. Iran must agree to end its meddling in Middle East conflicts and its sponsorship of terror. Threats by Iran to ships in the Persian Gulf, U.S. naval vessels, and American troops must cease. And I would add to that, we should be prepared to use military force if there are any future threats to U.S. ships or U.S. troops in the Persian Gulf. Iran must cease its hostility towards Israel. And finally, Iran must release all U.S. prisoners. I believe Robert Levinson, a former FBI agent, is still being held prisoner in Iran. There probably are other Americans whose names have not been made public who are being held prisoner in Iran. There are several U.S. green card holders who have been arrested and are being detained in Iran. There is a Canadian professor who was recently arrested for no reason who is being held. And you know, it really galls me. You may remember in January this prisoner exchange, and Secretary Kerry and President Obama were celebrating the success of their diplomacy that resulted in the release of several American prisoners who had been captured only because they were Americans and tortured in Iranian prisons. They celebrated this as a success of their diplomacy. They did not say one word that this is unacceptable, that the United States will not tolerate this type of abuse and false imprisonment of U.S. citizens. Not one word was said about that. That has to be the standard of American policy, that we will not stand for this type of activity against our citizens. And states who do this are going to pay a high price, including possible military action by the United States.